The Masai Mara lay unnervingly still, not the usual hush of a savanna holding its breath, but a silence that pressed down, heavy and thick, after the brutal symphony of a hyena attack. Dust, stirred by the frenzied scramble, settled like a shroud over the trampled grass and scattered remnants. Yet, beneath the familiar scent of earth and spent life, an alien fragrance lingered, a faint metallic tang, sharp and acrid, not of blood, but something far more unsettling. Anya, the aged lioness, moved with a weary grace that belied her arthritic joints. Each step was a quiet protest, a reminder of seasons weathered and hunts pursued. She was drawn not by hunger, nor the call of her pride, but by that aberrant scent. It was a disturbance in the very fabric of the air, pulling her like a phantom string toward the heart of the recent chaos. Her tawny muzzle twitched, sniffing, trying to place the unnatural presence. And then she saw him. Quito, a zebra foal, small and trembling, tucked into a meager shadow. He was impossibly young, barely old enough to stand, yet his dark eyes held an uncanny alertness. There was a depth in their gaze, a desperate intelligence that felt too aware for a creature so new to the world. He shivered not just from the cool morning air, but from a terror that seemed to originate from deeper than the recent predator encounter. Near the foal, Anya noticed it. On the crushed grass, glinting faintly under the nascent sun, was a strange, almost iridescent residue. It shimmered with an unnatural, otherworldly gleam, a spectrum of colors that didn't belong to dew or pollen or any natural substance she had ever known. It pulsed with a subtle, almost imperceptible light, a stark anomaly in the raw, organic landscape. This was not nature's handiwork. Her instincts, honed over countless hunts, screamed prey. Quito was vulnerable, a meal, a natural part of the cycle. But the sight of the shimmering, alien residue, combined with the profound, desperate trust in Quito's eyes, stirred something deeper within her, a profound sense of injustice, a wrongness that defied the very laws of the savannah. This was not simple predation. This was tainted. In an unprecedented act, Quito took a tentative step towards her, then another. There was no fear in his movement, only a soft, almost pleading sound, a low whicker that bypassed Anya's predator instincts entirely. His eyes, still holding that unusual intelligence, seemed to lock with hers, conveying a plea that transcended species. Anya grappled with the weight of millennia. Her ancestors would have seized the opportunity. Natural law dictated her action, but this wasn't about a meal. This felt like witnessing a crime against the wild itself, a violation of the pure, untamed essence of the Mara. Every aching joint, every weary muscle, seemed to resonate with the profound ethical dilemma she faced. A low growl rumbled in her chest, not of aggression, but of burgeoning conviction. This is not nature's doing, she thought, the words a silent echo in the hushed expanse. This is wrong. The pain in her aging body was momentarily forgotten, overridden by a hardening resolve. She lowered her massive head, nudging Quito with a gentle, deliberate force. As her muzzle brushed his flank, it also grazed the iridescent dust on the grass. The strange particles clung to her fur for a moment, a silent, unsettling testament to the abnormality. In that touch, that soft push, a bond was forged, born from shared peril, from the unsettling presence of the unknown, and an unspoken understanding of a looming, unseen threat. As she carefully guided Quito away, a new watchfulness settled upon Anya. She scanned the horizon, her amber eyes piercing the distance. The metallic scent still hung in the air, a phantom presence, a signature of the alien force that had descended. She felt watched, but not by the familiar eyes of hyenas or jackals. This was a presence unknown, unseen, yet acutely felt. He is not merely prey. He is a victim. And there is a shadow here, heavier than death. The words were a low rumble in her chest, a vow. Quito emitted a soft, hopeful whicker, pressing his small head against Anya's warm flank. His unusually bright eyes, reflecting the dawn, seemed to understand the silent, formidable bond they had just formed. The ache in Anya's arthritic joints was a dull throb, a constant companion, yet it was overshadowed now by a sharper, more immediate drive. Her purpose, born in the unnatural silence of the hyena attack, fueled her steps. She carried Quito, his small body cradled gently in her powerful jaws, moving with an urgency that transcended mere maternal instinct. This was a flight not just from peril, but towards an unknown truth. Nestled securely, Quito's head remained surprisingly upright. His dark eyes, too aware for his age, scanned the passing landscape with an unnatural focus. He wasn't merely observing, he was searching, almost guiding her with an unspoken vigilance, his gaze darting from the rustling grasses to the distant horizon, as if seeking something specific in the vast expanse. Then, partially buried in the dust of a small, trampled hollow, they found it. It was no rock or discarded bone. Sleek, metallic, it seemed carved from shadow and starlight, an object of cold, alien precision. A small, dark capsule, unlike anything natural to the savannah. As Anya drew closer, a faint, high-pitched hum vibrated from its core, a sound too high for the Mara's natural symphony, barely audible, yet undeniably there. Anya felt a surge of primal danger from the object. It wasn't the scent of a predator, nor the warning of a venomous snake, but a colder, more insidious threat. She nudged it cautiously with her massive paw, the metallic surface cool and unyielding against her sensitive pads. Then, driven by an instinct to hide what didn't belong, she scraped frantically, bearing the capsule quickly beneath the loose earth, a desperate attempt to erase the anomaly from unseen eyes. Quito, sensing her alarm, let out a sharp, anxious whinny. He stared intently at the spot where the capsule had vanished, his small body tensing. His behavior was unmistakable. He recognized it, or at least sensed its malevolent presence and the danger it represented. His whinny echoed with an almost human fear. A short while later, they passed a small group of gazelles. Instead of their usual cautious flight, the elegant creatures twitched erratically, their heads jerking, eyes unfocused, clouded not with fear but a strange, disoriented malaise. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, they bolted. Not as a cohesive herd, but in an uncoordinated, terrified panic, scattering in disjointed directions, their usual instinct to flee a predator like Anya completely overridden by some unseen terror. They paid no mind to the lioness and her unusual charge. Anya's internal growl deepened. This was not random. The iridescent residue, the humming capsule, the frantic, deranged behavior of the gazelles. It was all connected, a tapestry of unnatural events, weaving together into a single, terrifying pattern. This was not the wild's doing. This was a looming, man-made threat, insidious and invisible. Quito, nestled against her, started to anticipate Anya's movements. He communicated distress or alertness with subtle nudges and soft sounds, a tiny nudge of his head against her flank, a low, urgent whicker. His learning speed was astonishing, his understanding almost prescient, as if he perceived threats before they fully materialized. Anya felt an intensifying sense of being tracked. It was a cold sensation, a pressure on the air, but devoid of the familiar warmth of breath or the scent of fur. There were no visual cues, no rustling in the grass. This felt colder, more mechanical, an invisible gaze that bore down on them, relentless and silent. They approached a tributary of the Mara River, its winding course offering a potential barrier. But as they neared the banks, Anya saw them, strange, almost geometric footprints embedded in the damp earth, unlike any animal. Too precise, too angular, the marks of something artificial, something human. What foul magic is this, little one? What demon leaves such marks? Anya thought, her internal growl rumbling low in her chest as she examined the metallic capsule with a wary paw. Quito whimpered, pressing his face into Anya's mane, as if seeking shelter from an unseen danger that only he could fully perceive. The Mara was changing, and not for the better. The midday sun beat down mercilessly as Anya approached Kiongozi's pride. Her intention was simple, a temporary respite, a passage through familiar territory, perhaps even a moment of shared shade. Kiongozi, the massive pride leader, lifted his scarred head, his golden eyes narrowing, his posture initially one of curiosity, then quick confusion. But his growl, when it came, was chilling. It wasn't merely territorial, it vibrated with an underlying fear and suspicion, directed not at Anya, but specifically at the small, striped foal by her side. One of the younger lionesses, Zuri, edged forward, drawn by an instinct she couldn't quite place. She lowered her head, sniffing the air around Quito, her nostrils flaring. In an instant, she recoiled, her hackles rising, a look of utter revulsion contorting her features. He is not just prey. There's something wrong with him. His scent. It burns, she hissed to Kiongozi, her voice tight with unnatural fear. He smells altered. Kiongozi rose to his full height, his powerful form radiating an unsettling authority. You carry an abomination, old lioness, a blight. It taints our lands. His words were harsh, devoid of the usual complex nuances of a predator assessing a threat. There was an unnerving finality to his tone, almost as if he were reading from a script, lacking the raw, organic logic of natural predator behavior. Anya tried to explain, her own growl a low, rumbling plea for understanding. She spoke of the strange residue, the metallic tang, the frightened gazelles. But Kiongozi ignored her, his golden eyes cold and distant, devoid of any recognition of their shared lineage. She realized then that his judgment wasn't based on natural law alone. It was influenced by something else, something insidious, something human that had seeped into the heart of the savannah. Quito, far from cowering, subtly pressed against Anya's leg. A strange protective energy seemed to emanate from his small form, almost shielding her from the pride's harsh judgment. He met the hostile gazes of the lionesses with a quiet, remarkable courage, his intelligent eyes unblinking. The lionesses, at Kiongozi's silent command, began to move. They formed a tight, menacing circle, not attacking, but deliberately shunning, their synchronized movements almost rehearsed. With slow, deliberate steps, they forced Anya and Quito to the very edge of their territory, pushing them on as if expelling a virulent disease. Our instincts are clear, Anya. You carry a shadow. Leave or face the judgment of the savannah and of those who watch. Kiongozi's voice carried an ominous, almost pre-programmed finality that sent a shiver down Anya's spine. As they retreated, Quito looked back at the pride, his gaze lingering on Kiongozi. Then, with a decisive nudge of his head, he pressed against Anya's flank, urging her towards a specific direction, away from the familiar, open plains of the main migration path, toward a denser, less traveled, and seemingly safer areas of tangled bush and rocky outcrops. Anya, bewildered by Quito's clear directional guidance, hesitated for only a moment. Her own instincts, once her absolute compass, felt clouded, confused by the unnatural events. Quito's intuition, however, seemed sharp, uncorrupted. She decided to follow his lead. His silent language, his small nudges and focused gaze now seemed to guide them away from unseen threats more reliably than her own aged instincts. Their flight took them past a watering hole, a place usually bustling with life, but now it was deserted. The water, a vital lifeline, shimmered faintly with an unnatural sheen, a dull, iridescent film across its surface. Other animals, usually desperate for a drink, gave it a wide berth, their instincts screaming caution. Quito, with a sharp sniff of the air, guided Anya firmly around it, his message clear. This place, too, was tainted. The shadow of contamination grew longer, stretching across the land. Deep into what should have been the Mara's untouched heart, Anya and Quito journeyed, each step taking them further from familiar safety. But even here, the anomalies persisted, growing stranger, more pervasive. They watched as a flock of oxpeckers, usually chaotic and individualistic, suddenly wheeled in a synchronized spiral, a perfect, unnatural vortex against the blue sky, then peeled away with chilling uniformity. Later, a family of meerkats, typically a jumbled, chattering mess of fur and claws, sprang from their burrow in a highly coordinated, near-perfect line, vanishing into the scrub with the precision of a military drill. The wild was whispering warnings, but in a language distorted by an alien influence. Quito, a beacon of improbable awareness, had now become their unerring compass. His small head would twitch, his ears flick, his body language subtle yet clear. He nudged Anya away from paths that seemed inviting but were subtly wrong, leading her instead to hidden, uncontaminated water sources where the liquid shimmered with pure light, untouched by the iridescent film that plagued other pools. He navigated through the dense bush with an almost prescient understanding, avoiding invisible tripwires of danger that Anya's own vast experience could no longer detect. His senses, unclouded by instinct, were far keener for the subtle signs of the encroaching human threat. Their journey brought them to a place that felt fundamentally wrong. The vegetation here was unnaturally sparse, not from drought or overgrazing, but as if life itself recoiled from the ground. The air, despite the absence of wind, crackled with an almost imperceptible static, a low hum that vibrated in Anya's teeth. Then she saw it, a line, invisible yet utterly final. Animal tracks, hoof prints of wildebeest, paw prints of hyenas, even the delicate trails of smaller creatures, all abruptly stopped. As if encountering an unseen wall, they veered sharply away, leaving a clear, empty boundary, a containment zone, unnatural and terrifying. Anya's fur prickled along her spine. The metallic tang in the air grew stronger here, almost a taste on her tongue. It was faint, yet unmistakable, like the humming capsule they had buried. She could feel it, an intense sense of being watched, but not by eyes of flesh and blood. There was a colder, more mechanical presence. High above, she detected an almost inaudible hum, a sound that resonated deep within her bones, a silent testament to unseen drones, surveillance cameras, or some other high-tech device. The vastness of the Mara was shrinking, becoming a cage, and they were trapped within the gaze of an invisible foe. The shocking turns in this conspiracy are coming thick and fast, and the danger to Anya and Quito has never been more immediate. Don't miss what happens next. Like this video, share it with everyone you know, and subscribe to keep up with every twist and turn of this terrifying truth. Anya, her body a symphony of aches and protests, pushed onward. Each step towards the Mara River was a testament to her fading strength, her arthritis now a searing pain with every movement. The swollen, churning waters ahead represented their last major obstacle, a perilous barrier against the unseen hunters. But before they could reach its murky embrace, the ground around them erupted. Imbaya's hyena clan, a shadowy horde, ambushed them at the river's very edge. Yet these were not the cunning, scavenging hyenas Anya knew. They were larger, unnaturally aggressive, their eyes dull and unthinking, devoid of the spark of natural intelligence. Their movements, typically chaotic, were disturbingly coordinated, almost mechanical, like a pack of attack dogs unleashed by a master. Mbaya, the matriarch, a beast Anya had known for years, displayed a manic, almost programmed ferocity. Her cackles were not those of a predator's glee, but something far more chilling, infused with a bizarre, human-like cadence. "The Tainted One returns! Our masters demand its retrieval!" she shrieked, her voice grating, a horrifying revelation. The words hung in the air, echoing with the truth of their puppeteers. Anya's heart clenched with a horrifying realization. These were not mere beasts driven by hunger. They were tools, perhaps genetically enhanced, their natural instincts corrupted, their minds bent to the will of human forces. The bioengineered wildlife was no longer a theory. It was a snarling, violent reality. "These are not mere beasts. They are puppets, driven by a sickness I cannot comprehend," Anya roared, a guttural sound of anguish and defiance. An agonizing ethical dilemma seized her. She had to protect Quito, the innocent bearer of a terrible truth. But she now understood that the hyenas, too, were victims of this sprawling conspiracy, their primal instincts twisted into something monstrous. Her decision was brutal. Fight these manipulated creatures, prolonging their suffering, or focus solely on protecting Quito and ensuring the truth could escape. Quito, sensing the profound wrongness of the situation, the utter violation of natural order, let out a heart-wrenching whinny. It wasn't just a sound of fear, it was an appeal to Anya's deep understanding, a desperate plea for the truth to escape, to be carried beyond this immediate, horrifying trap. In a split second, Anya made her agonizing decision. Her sacrifice must serve a greater purpose. She scooped Quito gently but firmly into her jaws, her powerful grip a paradox of tenderness and urgency, and plunged into the raging, muddy waters of the Mara River. The river, swollen and treacherous, proved to be an enemy as formidable as the hyenas. Tainted by unseen runoff, its currents tugged and pulled with malevolent force. Suddenly, Anya's leg caught, not on a submerged log or rock, but on something sharp, metallic, alien. It twisted, tearing her limb badly, a searing pain lancing through her, threatening to drag her under. Despite their innate fear of water, the hyenas surged to the bank, snarling and snapping, attempting to follow, driven by an unholy command. Their dull eyes glowed faintly in the dim light filtering through the riverine trees, confirming their unnatural state, their absolute corruption. With her last reserves of strength, Anya fought the treacherous current. The pain in her leg was immense, but the burning need to deliver Quito to the safety of the distant zebra herd, who she hoped would carry his vital message, was an even stronger force. "Run, Quito! Carry the truth! They will never break us!" Anya commanded, her voice raw, just before the full force of the river's current and the metallic shard's damage threatened to claim her entirely. Anya clawed her way to the far bank, the river's icy grip relinquishing its hold inch by agonizing inch. Her injured leg dragged, a lifeless weight, bleeding freely into the mud. With a final shuddering gasp, she collapsed, her body a testament to monumental willpower. Her strength ebbed, a tide receding from her aged form. Quito, soaked and shivering but unharmed, nudged her gently with his small head. His dark eyes, no longer merely fearful, were filled with a profound, somber understanding, far beyond that of a mere foal. He grasped the gravity of their escape, the price of his survival. Anya struggled to lift her head, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Listen, my brave Quito," she rasped, her voice a fading whisper. "The herd, they must know. Tell them of the shadow, the metal, the false beasts, the classified operation." Her words were not just a final outpouring of love, but a critical mission, the last ember of her defiance. Quito's large, dark eyes welled, and tears streamed down his striped face. These were not just the tears of a grieving foal. They were tears of a creature burdened with a crucial, terrifying secret. He understood Anya's sacrifice, the immense weight of the truth now passed to him, and his inherited solitary role. He was no longer just a survivor. He was an emissary. Across the plains, the distant rumble of the migrating zebra herd grew louder, their familiar stripes a beacon of hope. But as Quito looked, his heart leaped with a fresh jolt of fear. Among the vast expanse of black and white, he noticed subtle differences. Some of the zebras bore faint, almost invisible bioluminescent marks on their flanks, ethereal glows that pulsed faintly in the fading light, chilling signs of the environmental cover-up. Anya, her gaze following Quito's, let out a final horrifying gasp, her eyes widened, reflecting a terrifying ultimate realization. The migration itself, this grand natural spectacle, was being subtly managed and monitored by the very human forces they had fled. The herd was not just safety, it was part of the broader experiment, a grand illusion. The Mara, the world, was a stage, and they were all unwitting actors. Quito, now an emissary of truth, understood his purpose, not just to survive, but to somehow warn his kind, to break the cycle of manipulation from within, to disrupt the grand design. Anya's eyes locked with his one last time. "Go, Quito. Tell them the wind carries lies, but your heart carries truth. The real predators wear no fur." Her final whisper was carried away by the breeze, a fading testament to her courage. Anya died then, not just a mother, but a martyr. Her sacrifice ensured Quito carried the knowledge of the conspiracy into the heart of the altered world, a silent, living testament to the truth she had unearthed. Quito looked back at Anya's still form, then at the subtly glowing marks on the distant herd, a fierce, knowing determination hardening in his eyes. He was no longer just a foal, he was a witness and a harbinger. He joined the approaching herd, a small, new stripe among thousands. He found a mare, drawing comfort from her warmth. But his acceptance was no longer just natural. It was a silent integration into a subtly controlled system he must now learn to navigate and subtly subvert. Years later, Quito, a magnificent stallion, his stripes gleaming, would tell the story. Not just of the strange lioness who saved him, but of the hidden darkness she had unveiled, of her courage against unseen puppet masters. His tales were laced with warnings, conveyed through subtle nudges, knowing glances, and deep wickers that spoke of things beyond the savannah. The older zebras, subtly affected by the pervasive manipulation, listened with a new, somber understanding, sharing hushed tales of strange metallic birds that flew without wings and sick water that shimmered with an unnatural glow. The conspiracy was not broken, not yet, but the awareness had begun, a whisper in the wind, subtly changing herd behavior, nudging them away from tainted paths, towards a future where the truth might finally break free.